What's going on, everybody? Rex TV2 back with another video. You feel me? They thought I was gonna be back. I will always be back. They gonna never stop me, man. With Lil Wayne saying 3P, they can't stop me, even if they stop me. But anyway, so should Errol Spence just go ahead and just face Keith Thurman and get it out the way, opposed to just prolonging and making us wait a whole, what's this? What month is this? October, November, December, January. So should we wait 3 months before Errol Spence face with Terence Crawford, or should Errol Spence just go ahead and just face Keith Thurman and get it out the way? Me personally, I think that Errol Spence should face Keith Thurman. I know that he does not want to, simply because he's still holding a grudge towards Keith Thurman due to the fact that once Keith Thurman was on top and once Keith Thurman had the belts, he ignored Errol Spence, treated Errol Spence as if he didn't need Errol Spence. And, you know, he was making all these excuses saying that, oh, I'm going to need $10 million to face Errol Spence. He was talking about how he was so focused on trying to secure a fight with Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. He was saying, we burn money, done. We burn money, done. Like, and, you know, his body language would shift, would switch up every time you mentioned the name Errol Spence. He just seemed like he was shook, right? So now the tables have turned, as Errol Spence would say. Now Keith Thurman, it's like I always got to remind y'all about that every time I talk about it, because a lot of people forget. But however, I think that Errol Spence should go ahead and just destroy Keith Thurman, knock his head off. You know, it's pictures of them out there that still annoys me, still make my skin crawl, of seeing this man sit Indian style and playing the flute. You know, Errol Spence told him, like, look, bro, like, when I win this belt, you're going to disappear. You're going to fake an injury. Well, he didn't say you're going to fake an injury, but I mean, come on, man. A rocket scientist or a blind man can see that this man faked the injury, staged the injury, so on and so forth. That matter of fact, once this video ends, I'm going to call Keith Thurman doctor and get more information about his injuries, because I feel like he's been lying to us about those injuries. But Errol Spence just needs to put his pride and his ego to the side and just take care of business versus Keith Thurman. Because at this point, I'm tired of waiting. Like, and then we get to January, and as I said, it's going to go from January, then it's going to change to, oh, the fight not going to happen until May, or the fight not going to happen until April, or the fight not going to happen until October of next year, or it's not going to happen until December. So it just seemed like they keep just moving the dates, and I want to see a fight. I want to see a showdown. I would like to see Errol Spence be more active. That's my favorite fighter right now. I can't hide that fact, you know, and it just seemed like they just keep pushing it. They can't agree to terms. And, you know, I think that Errol Spence faced Keith Thurman, because ultimately I think that's what PBC want anyway, because like I said, they could just keep the money in-house. Keith Thurman, I don't think he should be rewarded for being able to just sit on the sideline and feel like he could just, you know, just jump the line and feel like he could just come back and be afforded the luxury of being able to secure a big fight versus Errol Spence. And there are a lot of haters, or a lot of people just in general, who believe that this fight wouldn't sell. I actually believe that it'll not. I think it'll be just as big, in my honest opinion. And this is my personal opinion. Once again, it's not illegal yet. I personally think that an Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman fight would be just as big as a Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford fight. And here's why I say that. Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight is going to be a big fight. But I think people in their mind are projecting it to be, you know, to exceed their expectations of it. They think there's going to be a huge fight. But I highly disagree. I highly doubt that. I think it'll barely crack 1 million, or barely even crack 800 to 900,000. A Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman fight, I think it'll be somewhere upwards around that as well, around like 600, 700, because there's bad blood between the two. They don't like each other. Errol Spence is going to get annoyed and irritated by Keith Thurman because Errol Spence already told Yella Beezy on Instagram Live. He told Yella Beezy, you one of us. You don't act like all the rest of them light-skinned dudes. You act like one of us. And no disrespect to the light-skinned people out there. Errol Spence already told Yella Beezy, like, look, bro, like, you don't act like a regular light-skinned dude. You don't act all emotional and all that, bro. Like, you ain't sitting down texting and writing your lyrics with your feet clapping each other, right? Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman is going to have a build-up. They're going to trash talk each other. They don't like each other. Errol Spence is going to say things to Keith Thurman. He's going to attack Keith Thurman. He's going to make fun of Keith Thurman. It's going to be a bigger fight than him versus Sean Porter. And I think that even though Keith Thurman has been an actor for the most part, I think that they'll still be able to make a lot of money. And I know a lot of people may not like this, but Keith Thurman is far more known than Terence Crawford is. And a lot of people fail to realize that if Errol Spence really don't like Keith Thurman like he say he don't like him, I don't like him, and I don't even know him. But if he don't like him, then beat him. Beat him. That's the perfect thing to do. You can beat on somebody that you don't like and make money. I mean, like, who wouldn't want to do that? Like, who wouldn't want to be able to beat on somebody that they don't like and make money and do it the legal way and not get in trouble for it? I mean, who wouldn't? So I think that Keith Thurman will find a way to aggravate Errol Spence, get under his skin, you know, say that you've been ducking him, and then Errol Spence could mention how, oh, you ain't want to fight me, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people feel like this fight is not going to generate no interest, but I highly disagree. I think if they have this showdown at Dallas Cowboys Stadium, right, I think that's why he's opting to be patient with this fight. Errol Spence is being patient because I think PBC Al Heyman, they truly want Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman. They've been saying it on Twitter. They've been sharing, they've been tagging Errol Spence in it and saying that they want to fight. Errol Spence saying it's not going to happen. He don't want to fight Keith Thurman. And I think that's another reason why he'd rather go through being patient, go through the negotiations, and just allow it to, you know, fix itself to a point where he could go in there and just fight Terence Crawford. And he's trying to give the fans what they want to see. Errol Spence is a man of the people, and he's a man of his word. He really wants to fight. Errol Spence would dominate Keith Thurman, obviously. I think that if they did it at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, it'll sell out. It's a huge money fight, in my honest opinion. And I think for Errol Spence, he's not going to do nothing but help him because he could add another great fighter. I wouldn't say, you know, I don't know as of yet. Y'all can, you know, get in the comment section and let me know, do y'all think that Keith Thurman is a Hall of Famer? But just think if Errol Spence was to add Keith Thurman, I mean, like, he already used your Dennis Ugas and Danny Garcia as tune-ups. Just go ahead and add Keith Thurman, another big name, to your resume. That, I mean, come on now. You can go into the, and then a lot of people be like, oh, well, Keith Thurman don't have a belt. Just beat him for the fun of it. You don't need no belt. You ain't had no belt when you was about trying to fight Keith Thurman. So go ahead and fight him. Beat him up. Use him as a punching bag. Do it for the culture. Keith Thurman ain't been the same without the ponytail. Honestly, bro, I'm not trying to be 40 years old and look up and they still talking about we trying to make the Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford fight. Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, they're still in negotiations. It's 10 years later, 40 years old. Errol Spence be what, 52? Errol Spence will literally be, he's 2 years older than me, so he'll be 42 years old, and we'll be like, oh, Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is close to happening. It's close to being announced. Bruh, I don't want to wait for that. Get in there and fight now. Now. I mean, y'all tell me, what would y'all much rather? And lastly, what I want to talk about is, you know, there are people who saying that Errol Spence should maybe go face someone like Jaron Ennis. But, I mean, that's contradicting as well, because Jaron Ennis doesn't have a belt. Who has Jaron Ennis face? At least Keith Thurman has, you know, the likes of Manny Pacquiao. He has some legendary names under his belt. So if I'm Errol Spence, I would much rather fight Keith Thurman opposed to fighting a Jaron Ennis who's much younger and a much hungry young lion. You're in a lose-lose situation with Jaron Ennis. If you defeat Jaron Ennis, they're going to say, oh, well, Jaron Ennis was inexperienced and, he was young and he wasn't ready. Then you lose to Jaron Ennis. Then they're going to say you lost to a guy, you didn't make that much money. And on top of that, because that's not a huge money fight. That fight is not, that's going backwards. Because if you fight Jaron Ennis, that's going backwards because Jaron Ennis doesn't have a big name. So yes, you're going to get the lion's share of the revenue, but it's not even really going to generate a lot of revenue because it's not a big fight. And it'd be going backwards. He don't have no belt. He barely has a name in the sport. I mean, amongst boxing fans, he probably got like 1,000 fans at best. No disrespect to Jaron Ennis, great fighter. Just talking trash. But, Errol Spence gains nothing from facing Jaron Ennis to where he could fight Keith Thurman, who still has a name and more people know him than Jaron Ennis, opposed to fighting on Terence Crawford.